Okay, go for it.
Hello everyone, it's Elizabeth here, and today on that side of me I have Keith Rickman from sunny Cyprus. Hello Keith.
Hi there, Elizabeth. How are you today?
I'm all right, thank you.
That's good.
So
And likewise here.
Yes, and we met through our Facebook group. So we met through the Project Management Cafe Facebook group, and I know that you've done lots of work recently on risks, issues, dependencies, the basic principles that probably don't get covered often enough in some of the project management training and education that people go through. But knowing that that's your specialist subject, we wanted to talk about it. So why RAID is the acronym, isn't it? So first off, tell us what that stands for.
Yeah. Okay. RAID is an acronym for risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. And in the course I've been writing and having reviewed recently, I've added constraints onto that. So I've called it RAID plus C, which is an acronym for it. Why do I think this area is important? I think it's important because if you look at the way things are moving, we're going from the triangle of constraints to 6 constraints. And in those constraints, we now include risk. And I think certainly my experience in working with newbie project managers is that they just simply don't get enough grounding, because when they start as a project manager, or they're thrown in at the deep end, or maybe they're shadowing someone, everything is focused on getting the project up and running, getting things done. And no one really takes the time to sit back in the cool of the evening or whatever and to discuss the key things, which are risks. Even worse, I've been in meetings where we've done a project plan. It's completely the wrong way around. We've done the project plan, right? And then we've sat there for a whole morning and said, okay, what are the risks? And you think, well, hang on a second, shouldn't we have done that first? Because then we would and worse still, I've seen a risk plan and a risk log, and it's then put on a shelf. It's not used. It's not a dynamic thing. And this really concerns me. And I guess, if you like, it's one of my little missions is to get this sort of work more embedded into project training, so that when you become a newbie or you're transitioning back to project management or onto project management, these things are there. They're flashing in front of you, if you like. Take aware of these things. If you like, it isn't rocket science. We live with risk every day, actually. You cross the road and you look to see if a car's coming. If it's far away, then you take a risk because you go across the road. If it's closer to you, you take a higher risk if you go across the road. We live with this every day, so it's not really rocket science. And one of the things that people have said to me is, oh yeah, risk is okay, but you have all this mathematics behind it and all this. No, I don't believe in that. What I'm looking for is this low, medium, high. Let's break it down into these things that we can understand first. And then if you want to get more sophisticated, that's fine. So, sorry, that was the end of my introduction.
That's all right. But something you said there made me think maybe we need to go back a step. So you talked about turning from 3 constraints to 6 constraints. So a good starting point would be, what do we mean by a constraint? What are the 3? What are the 6?
Yeah,
so
okay.
How do you define a constraint? Sorry, I'm just going to have some more tea.
No, please do. As far as I'm concerned, a constraint is if you like, a limiting factor that we work inside when we're doing a project. So if you like, the easiest one to think of is our budget, because that says, right, you've got to do this project for within £500,000 or whatever the figure happens to be, 10,000. But that is your constraint. You have to work your project, and the cost should not exceed your budget. The second one, of course, in terms of constraint that's easily analysed, is time. Okay, someone wants the project doing by a certain time. Now, first of all, that statement is completely wrong. Okay, figure the scene, right? I'm in a board meeting of a bank, etc., of which I was one of the senior project managers, if you want to put it that way. I've lost my screen. Okay.
I can still see you.
Can you still see me? Okay, I can't see you. But anyway, not to worry. Okay, so I'm in this meeting, and my boss is talking to the CEO of the bank, And the CEO said, right, I need this done by, and let's pick a date, June the 30th. And this was kind of in the February timeframe. And it was to actually change the bank over from one system to another.
That sounds like quite a big project.
Yeah, so my boss turned to me, and he was obviously trying to impress the CEO. And he said to me, Keith, you'll be in charge of this. We can do that, can't we? And of course, I had, the CEO looking at me. And you sort of think, well, excuse me, I know nothing about the project, etc. So here you get a defined date. And of course, this is silly. You do a project within a time frame that you work out, okay? But time is a constraint. Because once you've planned the project and you've got it all sorted and you commit then to your owners that you're going to do it within that time, that is a constraint for you, okay? So that's two, if you like, examples of constraints that I would give. We also look at scope. Scope, what does that mean? Well, it's what the project is designed to do. It's designed to deliver something. I want to be quite clear here because scope says I will deliver a table. Okay, let's say it's a table. When you look at the 3 additional constraints, the first one you hit is quality. Okay, and quality is a characteristic of a deliverable. So let's try and make this very big distinctions here. A scope says I want a table, it's going to have 4 legs and 2 drawers, and it's going to be 6 foot by 3 foot or whatever. Okay, so it defines that in terms of the shape, etc. But what it doesn't say is what's the table made of. If the table has to be made of cherry wood, and I picked this up from an article I read recently, then we don't have any flexibility at all. So there's no, that is a single constraint. However, if the person says, well, really, I don't mind if it's cherry wood or walnut or oak, that gives us flexibility, but it's still a constraint, okay? You can't go out and buy, a stupid example, you can't go and buy balsa wood from the local store and make the table out of balsa wood. Okay, so that's what I see as quality constraint. And why is this important? Because, well, the person who actually asked you to do the project asked you to do that in the quality dimension. There's a scope which says build the table, and then the quality of the table is defined. So it is important to actually have this as part of your project management control mechanism. The 5th one is benefits. And we all know that in the real world, we should have a business case for a project. If we don't have a business case, then why are we doing the project? And that business case will define the benefit that this project is supposed to bring to the organization. It could be that we will have a new product on the market and we will get 25% of the market share for that product category. Okay, it's a defined benefit.
Yes.
And all too often we lose sight of this. We build something, but do we actually know that it works and that it brings the benefit to the company? Because if it doesn't, then the project should be stopped. That's an approach. We either change the other constraints, or we say, no, this isn't going to happen. And let me give you an example, if I may.
Keith, there's quite a lot of background noise.
Sorry. Yes, right. I do apologise. I'm in the middle of my house.
That's
and
all right.
Just briefly, just pull the door to, and that may help. Just 1 second, please, if I may.
That might give us a bit of a clearer audio. Let's see.
I'm back.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. You were talking about business cases, and I know that in real life we should have one.
Yes.
In practice, often we don't, but there still would be some idea of the benefits that a project is supposed to deliver.
Yes, I think that's true. Even if you're doing a project for marketing, marketing will say this project is going to bring some benefit to the company. So they are expecting the benefit, and we as project managers should be able to deliver that, or to deliver a product that will create that benefit. And I guess the last one is risk and risk tolerance. And this is something which I think is often as I've already said, not given as much emphasis to it as it should be. What do I mean by risk tolerance? We all know that we have low, medium and high in the impact on the project, and we have the probability of something happening low, medium, high. And if you multiply those together, you get whatever you want to call it, a severity rank, etc. And when you talk to owners, and this is where I'm coming from, owners will have a risk tolerance. And I know in the past that many of them actually kind of don't discuss it. It's there in their head, but they don't really discuss it. And I think by adding this in as a constraint, we force that to come out into the open. Because unfortunately, when projects fail, people start looking round for the reasons that they failed, and it usually comes down to a guy called or a lady called the project manager, doesn't it? I mean,
it does, unfortunately, but it does.
Didn't they know that? Didn't they know the risk, etc.?
How did they not see the risk coming? But if you accepted the risk because you hadn't had a conversation with your sponsor around what the risk tolerance was, or it wasn't aligned, you were doing really risky activities and you thought that was okay, and the sponsor said it was fine, but actually the risk appetite of the organisation as a whole was much lower, and they, perhaps they were at fault in their thinking too. So understanding the risk profile in context is so important.
I think it is. And again, as I've said before, it isn't really rocket science. An example might be a supplier. There is a supplier risk on many projects. Do we know that that supplier is sound? Are they financially sound? Are they going to keep going for the period of the project? They're supposed to produce 50 ATMs because we're implementing an ATM network. Can they produce them? Do they have the financial resources to get those ready with the software that we want? It's a risk, and we have to assess that risk and then put it to the project owners to see if it's within their appetite. So I think there's enough there really to use 6 constraints instead of 3. And really it's about controlling the project. These are not necessarily that if you step outside of one and take one step outside of one, that the whole thing comes crashing down. But what you need to understand is that they all work together. And if we all know that the original 3 of time, scope and cost, everyone said, yeah, okay, move to and define the 3rd. I think things have gone a lot more serious now in terms of the items that we've talked about, quality, benefit and risk.
Yes.
And therefore, it's a case of managing all 6 together and seeing what the effect is on the others as you move forward. And then going back to the owner, I mean, going to project meetings, how much more informed will be the owners, the stakeholders, however you wish to mention it, or the company, if they have these extra constraints before them, and you can then talk to them about whether this is still okay to go.
Yeah, and I think that gives you a framework to have discussions at a meaningful level with your project sponsor beyond, are we on track? How much money have you spent? It gives you the context, and once you know your operating environment, you can work within that, and you've got a lot more freedom of action. So I think it's definitely worth that. So if you haven't got those things in place and you don't understand those constraints on your project, what would be your top tip for a project manager starting out?
I would expect a project manager to spend some time getting into these areas. Of course, I can recommend a course, but that's which I will be launching soon, and that's fair enough. But seriously, any project manager that's coming on doing his first project should be looking at analysing his project in these 6 terms. If he doesn't know how to do it, he needs then to get to understand that. Okay, where can he go for that? He can go to more experienced project managers within his company, get them to mentor him, get them to coach him in these areas. That's always good. I learned enormous amounts by just watching my project managers before I became a project manager. And you find out, usually by the mood they're in, what's working and what's not working, okay? So that I would look. Of course, the PMI books are very good on this, and there are some excellent videos on these areas. Look, you don't have to spend a lot of time on this at the beginning. what you're going to do is to learn the principles behind them, and then to see how that works in your project. The other thing I would suggest also, and one of these may seem a little off the wall. First of all, I would certainly talk to other project managers within your company. If your company and you're the only project manager, okay, then you've got to look outside to forums and so on. Happy with that. But if not, go talk to other project managers and get their feel on it. And surprisingly, go talk to the audit group. You can tell I come from a financial background. Every bank that I've ever worked for has got a serious audit group, and that's good. I like that. But most of them are ex-project managers and so on that have moved into auditing as well as taking audit. So they understand the issues that you have. And they will have audited projects and found things that have gone horribly wrong. So they can help you in that way. I always found I always found it very good to make, not friends with the auditors in the sense that I get a better audit rating, because that's not the deal. Okay.
It might help a little bit though, surely.
Well, it might do, yes. Taking them out for a few beers is going a bit far, but you understand my drift.
I do.
People have experience. The other project managers have experience. Go to where those experiences are and soak it up. That's what I would give as my tip.
I think that's a really great tip. So we're looking at, those are the constraints, and then we've got risks, assumptions, issues and dependencies as well, forming the other 4 areas where project managers need to be spending. And this is all about control, isn't it? It's all about monitoring and control and creating a governance framework that just works within your project and if all of those things are balanced, then I think you'll be quite confident.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd like to go back to, we talked, and my dog is just barking. He's defending my house.
Against what?
I don't know what the risk is. It's probably a cat that's walking down the side of the road. Okay. The other thing I would like to stress also is look at these things at the beginning of the project, when the project is just starting. This is not something down the road, it's something right at the very beginning. Because there is the question, should this project go ahead? Okay, so you should be looking at the risks, you should be validating your assumptions. It's no good saying, right, we assume that Keith will be available for this project. Of course he will, yes. Well, how do you know? Does he still work for the company? Is he on some other project which is more important than this one? You've got to validate all of your assumptions. If issues arise during the very first days of the project, having got the business case on your table, then you need to raise those issues, go talk to the stakeholders, and you need to look at the dependencies. It's not just a case of saying, well, we need somebody to provide these ATMs, notice the financial flavour again. We need who are the best suppliers for these things on which we're going to be dependent. You need to sort that all out at the beginning of the project. Then you can go start on your project plan. So many times have I seen people go headlong into the Gantt chart and so on. Here's all the tasks I need to open this branch network, etc. No one's looking at these, the RAID and the constraints. It doesn't take long, but it is so necessary at the beginning of the project. Then you can go back to your stakeholders and say, look, this project is good to go, but you do know that there is a risk here, we've got a dependency here, etc. And those stakeholders will welcome this presentation, as opposed to, it's going to cost so much and we'll have it done next week.
Yes, yeah. So true. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing those thoughts with us. I think you said something at the very beginning that it might be worth us ending on, which is that once you've created your risk logs and populated those templates, you just put them on the shelf and leave them, and that's not the right thing to do, is it?
Absolutely not. That's absolutely true. I have seen that so often. First of all, it's a complete waste of time. So why did you closet yourself in a room for a whole day producing a risk log, which you then put on the shelf? But it is all of the things that we talked about: risk, assumptions, issues, dependencies, and even the constraints are fluid. They're not fixed entirely, and therefore, as they move, you've got to adjust your risk and issue log to take account of those.
Yes.
And if you don't do that on a regular basis, then you are asking for trouble. Now, what do I mean by a regular basis? If you set up a risk log properly, then you'll have a sheet for each of these that we talked about, R, A, I, D, and C, and you'll have all of the key risks listed. Now, you are not going to focus on every single risk, okay? What you're going to do is to rank them in severity and then go for the top ones. But of course, what is currently a low risk, they become a high risk. Okay. Let me just give you an example, if I may. We're just going to set out and launch this new product on the market. It's going to take us 6 months to build it, and then we'll launch it. At the same time, we know that a competitor is thinking about it. So at the moment, because they're only thinking about it, it's low risk. But if they come out with one, it's high impact because
definitely
our market's gone. Okay, so we need to monitor that during the whole of our project, because if they suddenly launch that product on the market, our risk is an impact has just gone through the roof. So it's got to be something which you work with every day. What you work on in that risk log, you can, if you use an Excel spreadsheet, you can get the severe risk at the top, and then you have a review date, and you can actually get Excel to tell you when to review them. Okay, so in the morning you'll get this thing from Excel that says you should be reviewing these risks, these assumptions, and so on. You don't have to go through the whole lot every day. And the other thing I would suggest is that this isn't just the project manager closeted in his or her office with a risk log. Don't forget you've got a team. You should share this with your team. Every member of your team, including the messenger, and that's another story which I will not bother you with now, okay, should understand these parameters that they're working within. And there's a very good reason for this, because they will have views that you don't have as a project manager, because you can't have every view.
No.
Okay, so your BA may say, look, Keith, this is absolutely fine, but this risk, this should be high. Oh, why is that? Okay, and then get the team to help you on this. I've even seen cases where areas have been allocated out to team members so that they're always coming back with a flow of ideas on these areas.
Okay.
Put the spreadsheet onto your network. You can even have specified members updating it so that you're getting a fluid use of this risk log instead of, as I've said so many times already on the show, nothing. Exactly. I apologise, Elizabeth. Okay?
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And it happens too often. It's common sense, but it's not common. People do it, and we need to be reminded. So thank you.
You're most welcome.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all of those insights into RAID and constraints and the way that the constraint model is moving.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, we look forward to answering questions about this in the Facebook group, and
I look forward to that with pleasure.
Seeing all of those too. Great. Well, have a great afternoon. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.